We're going live again to the second part of the day. Now that I've eaten lunch, I feel so much better. Oh my gosh, I was starving. It was bad. But I'm happy. I had a yummy sandwich with pepperoni sausages. It's not really pepperoni, but that's what they taste like. What are they called? I can't remember, but they do taste like pepperoni, no joke. And then I have my rejected fruit. So because I'm a loving and caring mother, I send my children to school with fruit, and then they don't eat it all, and they refuse to eat like this apple because it's been oxidized and it's turned a little brown, but there's nothing wrong with it. So I eat the rejected fruit. But that will be my snack for my class, because we're going to, what class will we be taking now? International trade and payment procedures. And I don't like this class for so many reasons. Oh my goodness. The teacher is nice enough. She has lots of energy. She likes what she's talking about. That's amazing. But the class is essentially paperwork. That's all it is. And right now, the case stuff that we're doing is just paperwork. It's going through the various documents that we've looked at and being able to say, hey, what it goes in box 1, what goes in box 2, what goes in box 3, what can we learn from box 4 through like 20? And it's not fun. Like, nobody likes paperwork. And really, the most useful stuff that I learned from this class is the name of the people who are in charge of filling out these documents if you yourself don't want to do it, which is who I definitely 100% will be employing if I ever do international trade, because I don't like paperwork. That's like, this is sort of like haha inside joke, funny between Prince Charming and me, is that we always say we're never going to get a divorce, or we'll joke about getting a divorce, which I know, not funny, but it's like, it's something we joke about because, one, it's not an option in our relationship, but also we would never do the paperwork. It would just be so much easier to just work out our issues than have to deal with the paperwork of getting a divorce. It really is, because the amount of paperwork it took just to get married. Oh my goodness, just, most people get married based on, romantic destinations of where they want to go. We got married based on which country has the least amount of paperwork involved, because, oh my gosh, it is just, it's hectic. Nobody likes paperwork. Anyway, the whole rant is paperwork in this class, and that's what we're working on right now, is that she gives us the cases, which I should probably have those in front of me, but they're all the way over there, and really all the way over there is like a distance, like from here to like where the camera is. It's not that far, but she'll show them online, and I hate to say, this is one of those classes where I don't understand what she's teaching most of the time. I have a couple classes like that where the English that they use is a bit questionable, not because it's necessarily bad, it's just the way that the teachers express themselves. They're expressing themselves for an audience who knows English as their second language. And I'm very used to teachers who are more effective in their expressive ability. So this is one of those classes where it's honestly just easier for me to go back and read the book, because I understand it better versus like paying attention in class and trying to figure out what the hell she's trying to explain to me, because it's a really roundabout way that she does it. It doesn't work for me. And it's sad, but that's reality. We have Tuna back. I think Tuna might come sit with me. You want to come sit, or are you going to be all nosy? Yay, Tuna's coming. Come. Say hello to the people on YouTube. They like you. Let's see. Yeah, I shouldn't be typing. You can come sit with me. I know, you're getting old. Is that why you have troubles doing the jumping of the distances? Like, I know you're not that old because you jump up on places where you shouldn't be, and I know you do because you ruined the wallpaper. This house is sort of old, and it has lots of wallpaper everywhere. Like, this is wallpaper. It's not paint. I like this color, though. Anyway, wallpaper. But she's ruined this little patch over here because she likes to claw it. And there's this area in our kitchen that has this ledge that she can jump onto. And she claws at the wallpaper. So, if anybody ever comes to my house and they see just random marks on the walls, this is the culprit. You're a bad kid, Tuna. Yes, you are. You're naughty, naughty kid. Yeah. All right, we're going to have some tea. Tea makes everything better. Hopefully I don't forget about it. I have a habit of doing that. Not sure if you all have that issue, but I'm very special when it comes to tea because there are times where I forget to make the tea and I think I want tea, so I go to start the pot. I boil the water. I have everything set up, but I just need to pour the water in. Like, I'll have the cup, I'll have the tea bag, but then I forget about the tea. And an hour later, I'll think, you know what would be really great? Tea. And then I go back, and there's just tea magically waiting to be made. So I start the pot again to boil the water. I leave, and I forget. And normally the third time, I finally remember to make the tea, but then I go away because I think, oh, the tea needs to cool down. And I'll think, oh, you know what would be really great? Tea. And I go back and there's this cup of tea, but it's cold. And so I've gotten into the habit of drinking cold tea. I know, I'm nuts, huh? Oh, my pretty key. I honestly thought that it was going to take me so much longer to get ready for class because it normally takes me so much longer to get ready for class when I'm doing this in the morning, but I realized it probably takes me longer because I'm not awake. And now I'm awake, so it's just, it went like that. It's amazing. Being awake is amazing, yes. So Tuesday is my least favorite day of all the days, well, except for Wednesday, because Wednesdays isn't fun. But Tuesday, I end really late at 5:15, and I don't understand why they do this weird thing that in the morning classes start at 45 and end at 45 for reasons, and then in the afternoon they change it to the class that's from 2 to what should be 4 gets an extra 15 minutes. And I don't see what that extra 15 minutes does. And it's just annoying. And what's annoying about it is that the class afterwards that I have starts at 4:15, but then it ends at 5:15. Which, isn't that bad necessarily, except I have to make dinner. And when I was going to school, it was great because Tuesday was the day that I didn't actually have to make dinner because I would get home way too late to do it. So Prince Charming got to do it. But now that I'm in school, it's just I go to class, and then once class is done, I have to go and start dinner. And I was sort of silly today because I forgot it was Tuesday, and the thing that I pulled out means that I sort of have to stop class at probably 4:30 so that I can go turn on the oven. Because we're going to have, I haven't decided if we're doing squashed or sweet potatoes. I think it depends on how much I want to annoy my family because I love sweet potatoes, which is such an American thing, I think. Ooh, your least favorite day is Monday. Why Monday? Oh, is it because it's the beginning of the week? Because that's like when you have to go back to work. See, for me, it's Tuesdays and Wednesdays because Tuesdays I end late at 5:15, But then Wednesdays is the half day for my kids. And I don't have a half day at school. I have a full day. So they come home normally when I'm still in class. And so I have to hurry up and rush them and be like, okay, happy you're home. You can go have chips. Just shh, mama's in class. And then I have to deal with them during lunch. And then I have to just park them in front of the TV and say, okay, mama's going to be busy now for like 4 hours and 15 minutes. Leave me alone. And I don't like doing that. I feel bad. I mean, I don't think they care because they get to watch TV and they're kids. But as a parent, I feel horrible because, I mean, they're old enough to take care of themselves to some extent. But I don't like being in a position where I have to be like, okay, unless you're bleeding, leave me alone, because that's not the role of a parent. I mean, I could send them to daycare, but at the same time, there's a pandemic, and I don't want them to have to go. Like, I think, well, it's good that the little children can go to school, because that would just create so much havoc for me if they weren't going to school. I mean, I'd probably have to drop out myself if they weren't going to school. That would just be too hectic. But at the same time, I find it really odd that we're not going to school, but my children have to go to school. Because we're code red right now. And so all my classes are online. And I just got an email before I started this, which sort of yay and boo, that I'm not going to find out the exam stuff until December the 11th. Which, when is that? Because I think the 10th is Thursday. Yes, so we won't find out till Friday. And we were sort of warned that some of them might be canceled or moved because they're having issues finding areas where they can put us because of the new regulations. But besides the whole exam thing, we're officially going to be in code red until February 21st. So the beginning of the second semester is going to be strictly online, and fingers crossed, we will get to go back to school probably at the half capacity in March. So I don't know, I have mixed feelings about the whole thing. Like, there's this part of me that wanted to wait to sign in or register for school until next year after there was a vaccine and everybody had access to it, because I didn't want to do school online. Because that's what happened last year, is that the pandemic came and it just was way too complicated to do things online. But I foolishly thought that, hey, you shouldn't put your life on hold. But it's so stressful. It really is. Like, and see, I'm actually really lucky, because I'd say about 90% of my teachers are so supportive and thoughtful when it comes to the students, and just trying to create a very pleasant environment without adding extra stressors. And I think this is a stressful period, whether you're a student or a teacher. But some of my teachers, I think they're in really bad states, just mentally, maybe even physically, and they're not being as thoughtful as some of the other teachers. And I'm trying to be, understanding that I know that for teachers, this whole online experience isn't any easier, that they have a different set of stress than students. But it isn't fun when you have certain teachers just being butts about things that really are just out of your control. Like, it's just frustrating, because some of my teachers absolutely refuse to record classes, and their whole reasoning is like, well, people won't come to class. But I mean, really, you don't know why people aren't coming to class. Like, I know one student who actually missed a class because their younger siblings were at home and he needed to watch them. I know I personally have missed class because my internet was just like, nope, we're not going to work today, so screw you. And yeah, I missed like 4 hours of class that way. Or my connection has gone wonky and the audio cuts out. And it would just be so much easier if there was an option to go back and rewatch the class, because the teachers who do offer that option, it's so great. Because the sad thing is online, you think that you understand something, but you go to do the exercises that correspond with where you are, and then you realize, oh no, I really don't. And I think it also helps with the teachers, if you're in person, that they can look at the students' faces and they'll see, oh, they all have this confused look, so obviously they don't know what's going on, and you can't have that online. So things are just really weird and complicated. And there's a little regrets for not waiting to go to school. But I guess it could be worse, because there are third-year students who had to do their business project, and that's apparently was this whole nightmare, and I didn't have to go through that. So yay! So Tuna's back with me. Lucky Tuna. She's almost never here with me on Tuesdays. I think it's because it's so cold. I don't know what happened. It was so, we're going to say, nice with quotations the past couple of days, and then it just got so cold. Oh my gosh. And she goes outside for like a couple minutes to go do her business, and then she starts meowing at the door. And I think now she's just with me because she's cold. My teacher's late. Maybe she won't come. I think I just need to wait 15 minutes. And then I can leave. Ow, Tuna. I don't like this class. I think I mentioned that. I feel bad for like poo-pooing on the class, but it's all paperwork stuff. And there are some students who know this, all the stuff that we learned. And I don't know how they do it, because it's magic. It really is. Because even when I studied for the test, I thought I knew stuff, but then, yeah, she asked some questions in a really interesting way, and I didn't understand the question because we're going to say it was in a different kind of English. Oh. Class is starting. She also teaches from the school. That's interesting. All the other teachers are at home. I want to know why. Why does she go to school? She must live close by. Because I wouldn't want to go. But then I'm also like 45 minutes away, according to Google, which is a lie, because it's really like an hour. We should market this. Where's my phone, Tuna?
So we finished case 2 the previous time, and now we are going to start with case 3. And you had to prepare that.
I didn't do that.
Question 1, 6, 7, and 8.
I'm a bad student. I think that's evident from the fact that I'm live streaming when I should be paying attention in class. They moved the button on Instagram. So annoying. Okay, we'll start with Tuna. Tuna is at class with me for international trade and payment procedures, which is being live streamed, and you should check us out. There we go. And we'll add a text.
For international trade.
To.
Okay.
Ooh.
So we need the case book and
Yeah, I don't have the case book. It's too far away. Take your time, because I'm doing stuff too. Yeah, she can't hear me, by the way. My mic's off over there. Hello, class. Hello, Inconspicuous, you're back. We're in international trade and payment procedures. It's all paperwork. Do you like paperwork? If you like paperwork, you'll like the class. Because that's what we do.
So let's start with a little poll.
Oh, cool. Oof. I need to share this on Twitter.
Did you prepare case 3?
No. Oh.
Yeah is yes, me is no.
Ooh, she's coming right out and asking if we did.
I don't see what you are answering, so don't be afraid.
Yeah, no, I didn't. Not gonna lie. I forgot. Well, honestly, I didn't forget. I'm just not doing homework because I'm focusing on studying, if I'm honest. And I understand that this would constitute as homework, except it's not what I want to focus on right now with the class. So I appreciate what she's doing. I'm just trying to study in a way that ensures that I pass my tests. And she totally can't see what we choose, so she lied there. Oh. I like accounting. Although I think it's interesting that over here it's called accountancy.
11 people still need to react.
Told her that, well, she did a poll, and so I did answer honestly. But it's also, unless the teachers are giving us homework where we have to turn it in online, I'm really not doing the homework unless it's for a class where I know that I'm struggling with. And for this class, since I'm essentially teaching it to myself because I don't understand her when she's teaching stuff, I'm not doing it. And I don't mean it in a disrespectful way. It's just, it would.
So 12 of you prepared it, 14 didn't. That's really a pity, because for this course it's very important that you make your preparations. I don't have the time to discuss everything into detail or to go through the documents like we did before, so we are going to correct this case with the students who have prepared it. But of course, if you have any questions, you can always say it, of course. We have 2 hours today, and then the last 2 hours next week. And the idea is that...
Yeah. Okay, anyway, with the thing that she's talking about, we have these cases where she gives us all the different types of documents that we've been learning over, and we have to write a paper, literally a paper, because the first one we did was like 7 pages long, explaining the document and each box within the document. And honestly, the way that she wants to do it, it's just better for me to be able to pass the test, to just look at the first example that she gave us. And so, at least for me, it would be so much more convenient if she just gave us the answers and then I could just look at the answers and try to remember them for the test, because that's how my brain works. Some of the teachers don't do that though. They want you to attempt something and then correct it later. And I think that works in things like math, but if we're talking about like international trade and payment procedures, this is something where essentially if I do it wrong, I'm going to remember it the wrong way, and I don't want to remember it the wrong way. I want to learn it the right way, practice the right way so that I remember the right way. And that's why I do it. Well, then if they want us to understand it and not just repeat it, they should change up how they do the tests, to be perfectly honest. Because the whole way that they're teaching it is based on just repeating it back in a way that they want, to be honest.
Yeah, indeed. So we have.
Because that's actually one of the complaints that I had with Prince Charming, was that how the format of the lessons didn't seem to care much about people understanding it. It was more about obtaining a quote-unquote good grade.
Important here is that 20,000 kilograms was contracted. Contracted weights. But the loading is a little bit less. What does that mean?
Well, I spoke to one of the other students, and my understanding is that the documents themselves, as in like being able to look at them and understand them, is like a third of the overall test. But I mean, a lot of the stuff that we had to learn in this course isn't what I would call useful information, to be honest. Because one of the things that we had to learn was which countries are in the EU, and not that that isn't relevant, but whenever I have to learn something that I think is stupid, I go around and ask people the thing that I need to learn, and the fact is that all the people that I've asked in Belgium, and even some friends in France, they don't know which countries are in the EU. I mean, they can name a couple, but they can't list all of them. And so that for me is just stupid information that's taking up space in my brain that can't be devoted to something else. And like, it's the same with these documents, that they're not that difficult to understand, but she literally wants a paper written about each document where you say, like, box 1 is the owner. It was a document of 7 pages, and it's literally something that in the real world you will never have to do. Nobody's going to ask you to take a bill of lading and be like, hey, can you write a paper on each of these boxes and explain in detail what each of them mean? Like, nobody's going to do that. They'd probably just be like, okay, did you fill out the paperwork? Yes. I think it would be more practical to get a document and actually have to answer questions on it than having to get a document and having to write a paper about like each box, or getting the document and having to fill it out, because filling out paperwork is the most difficult part of paperwork. But that's my 2 cents. What do I know? But I'm also probably really biased because I really don't like paperwork, even a little bit. Exactly. There are other people doing this. That's what I've been saying, is that the most useful thing that I've learned about this class are the people who take care of the stuff that we're learning about. Like the general forwarder, the cargo holder, the customs agent. Like, these are all people that, again, if I ever get a business and it goes to that level, I'll just be hiring them because I should have an income that can support their wage. But I also don't think that's going to happen, because that's just not a goal of mine.
Yes. Wellness ship.
Well, the whole thing is that the forms for this aren't even about starting a business. Like, starting a business and knowing the forms behind that would be way more useful than the things that I'm learning for this class, because all of this is, it's like what are they called? Incoterms. That's what they are. We're like how much responsibility the buyer and the seller has when they're shipping out goods. And again, useful if that's where you're going to go. But like, that's not useful to me. Like, we have the SIMI thing, which is like for train transportation. We have the CMR, which is for road transportation. We have the wayward bill of lading, the inland bill of lading. We have import and export documentations, which for customs, that is more useful. And I actually have experience with that just based on travel that I've done. But those were the only two documents that I found interesting because, to be perfectly honest, one of my goals in my company is, my theoretical company that does not exist, mind you, is to either be digital or to limit my carbon footprint by not doing international trade in the way that it's being done now. So if I'm going to give or sell something, because I'm not going to be giving, people are going to buy it. If I'm going to be selling something, we'll say in the US, my goal would be to set up a system that it's being made in the US to limit the amount of mileage that whatever I'm selling would have to go. So this wouldn't be that useful, because if you're cutting out transportation and that's going to be your goal, then half these documents will mean nothing for me. Long while as a civil servant for Belgian Federation Government Immigration Department, and you do love your paperwork in Belgium. Like, you take it to a whole new level, to be honest. When I moved here, I'd heard horror stories about obtaining a residency card. And I was lucky because I first moved to France, so I had a French residency card, which made getting the Belgian residency card so much easier. And I didn't realize how much easier until I talked to other people, and they were telling me just the mountains of paperwork that they had to supply, which was actually a fraction of what I had to supply. Because I think I just needed, I remember I needed to get a new official, what's it called? An apostille copy of my marriage certificate, which was this whole pain in the butt because the US doesn't send anything international and they don't accept credit card or cash. Hello! There's a Hatham saying. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. Hello, how are you?
So we don't talk about the shipper yet. The shipper is not a party on a commercial invoice.
Here, I can show you all what we're doing.
In the end, of course, BCAT will also be the shipper. For example,
That's what we're doing, where we look at a document,
they do not necessarily have to be the shipper.
and then we have to write a paper on it, which is not fun.
Then we have this document, the export accompanying documents.
Because again, I'm not at that level where I'm exporting stuff. And considering the amount of paperwork that would involve, that's not going to be a short-term goal of mine. Even with distributors, that's not going to be a goal of mine. I want to be as eco-friendly as possible. And part of that to me is going local. Ooh, the American Whisperer. Oh man, no, I have to say that
National parties, that's correct. Because when we
that's
see
one of the like expat problems
over here, we
is
have
that honestly I feel like
and the declarant is
well I have limited experience, mind you, because I spent 10 years in France and my experience with the French government just sucked. Like, I don't know what they're doing to the people at the prefecture in France, but they need to stop because those people are miserable and unhappy. Um, in Belgium, you just go down to town hall and they're lovely. They are so helpful and thoughtful. Like, I had this whole culture shock when I went to town hall to get my residency card because the woman was nice to me. And she didn't give me crap. She just gave me a list of paperwork that I needed and she said, bring it back and then I'll send it to Brussels. And I was just shocked that it was that easy because in France, I had to fight with people just to get a list of the paperwork that I need because they would say that it was on the website, but it wasn't on the website. It was never on the website. And for God's sakes, why would I go down to Orleans in person if it was on the freaking website? Ah, I'm having flashbacks. It was so bad. Okay, if you want to study English translated studies, wait. Oh, before I answer that, I want to say that my personal opinion is that the American government is like the worst government to work for when it comes to paperwork. I mean, honestly, I feel sometimes that the government, my government, the US government, is punishing me because I had the audacity to fall in love with somebody who is an American because like just the I don't understand why there's so much paperwork that I have to fill out just for them. And it's not streamlined. It's most of the time it's not even most of the time, it's 100% of the time I have to contact somebody back home to deal with the paperwork on my behalf because there's no way that I can get it because they won't send it internationally. They won't accept credit card. They only accept like money orders or check, both of which I don't have access to. And they're just like, oh, okay, well, can you contact your family here? So I don't know what I'm going to do when they all die. I'll just be screwed. Okay, and if you want to study English translation studies, what's the best college to be in? Okay, I don't understand if you mean like programs that are in English or if you mean programs that are directed towards translating a as a career, because those are two different things. But if you're looking for English programs, KU Leuven is the one that I know best that offers English courses. You sort of have to look around, but if you're looking at translation, then I don't know if there's actually anything that's focused on translating. It's probably going to be lingual based, where they're going to make you take a bunch of languages, and particularly in Belgium, you could study anything and they're probably going to make you take a bunch of languages because right now I'm studying business management and entrepreneurship, and we're required to take 2 languages and there's an option for a third. I'm only taking 1 because I didn't want to take the third language, and I got an exemption from the first language that's required because English is my maternal language and my Dutch was too good to continue Dutch in school. And I'm not going to lie, if I could get an exemption from German, I totally would, because learning a foreign language in another language, learning a foreign language in a third language is not fun. Because when my teacher is speaking, it's like a 30% understanding rate, and it really doesn't matter if she's speaking in Dutch or German. Normally I figure, oh, I understand this slightly better, she must be speaking Dutch. And then if I don't understand her as much, it's definitely German. Also, it doesn't help that, well, it sort of does and it doesn't help that German and Dutch are very similar in terms of structure and spelling. because I had this horrible, horrible experience 2 weeks ago when we took a German test. Because I created all these flashcards to learn German verbs. And the first part of the test was us translating the Dutch verb into the German verb and then having to conjugate it either in present, perfect, or imperfect tense. And I mastered that. I was just, that's what I studied. I'm good to go. And then the next section were the sentences, and I thought it was translation. And I was thinking, I understand how to conjugate these. I know how to conjugate them. I don't know what the word is in Dutch. And I was freaking out because I could not remember this word in Dutch. And I was like, I know how to conjugate this perfectly. And I told that to the teacher, and she was like, why do you need to know it in Dutch? And it's like, well, so that I can know it in German. And that's when she told me, but it's already in German. So it turns out I knew how to conjugate the verb in German. I just didn't know how to do it in Dutch. So, oh, that was like, oh, I'm still cringing at that. It was so embarrassing, but oh my goodness. Also, I would say that for the classes that I'm taking, it's mildly easier, I think, for me, only because English is my first language. And I think for the other students, well, I think it sort of depends on the student, but I think for some of the students, there is probably that lingual barrier because, yeah, taking a class in a foreign language, honestly, is difficult because it requires a different perspective and way of thinking. Like, I'm very impressed at their ability to do that because I'm taking the class in English because the idea of even trying to take something in Dutch, even though it would improve my Dutch, and I think, well, it's not even I think, because I did take some classes in Dutch and I passed them, yay. It's just, it's too difficult, especially when it comes to studying, because I know how to study in English and I have the ability to skim and do things like that. I don't have the ability to do that in Dutch. That's way too hard. Plus, I'd be graded on my Dutch writing, and I can't write in Dutch. The fun thing, though, is that going to school has introduced me to a lot of Belgian students who speak English in what I imagine the way that I speak Dutch, because sometimes they screw up the word order and it's backwards, and I love it so much. It makes me happy. Why is my Dutch at risk? Well, honestly, that is something that in the future, I don't know what I'm going to do about that. I'm going to have to start up reading again. I was reading and actually working a lot on Dutch before I started school, but now with the exam period coming up, I'm not really doing anything that's quote unquote fun. Oh, I would love for the local dialects to seep in. But to be perfectly honest, I think 100% my Dutch skills have deteriorated. Like, I was definitely a lot stronger at Dutch last year when I was still taking classes in Dutch than I am this year. But I think the problem that I face is that so many people just want to speak English with me. And that sort of sucks because it's not helping me learn Dutch. I mean, it's great because I don't have communication issues like I did in France, for example, but I can also see how this has slowed my progression in Dutch because in France, I learned French really fast, all things considered. But that's also because they were a bit more mean about it. Yeah. Belgians are really a lot nicer about the Dutch, which is really nice. And I would say it's nice also because I have this motivation to learn Dutch. It's just I want to learn Dutch just out of like just respect for the people who have been so amazing to me, which is something that sort of got murdered when I was in France because I loved French. It was such there's so much I loved about French. And then I went to France and I was like, oh, okay, I can't be bothered to learn French better than what I know it now because just what's the point?
Your exam is on the 7th of January, so the 6th of January before
Oh, that's cool that you went to Sweden. But yeah, I think that's sort of a problem in some countries that they're too good in English, or they also have, I think another issue is that the program that I'm in has all the foreign students. And so, oh, wait.
normally the dates and the hours of the exam will stay the same. Now they are still adjusting the exam schedule the 7th of January at 8:30.
That's not the official one because it hasn't been released.
And now they are still working on the exam schedules because they need to find rooms to do the exam. No, it's not online, it's a written exam. You should already know that to have your exam schedule.
No, we don't.
If it's an online exam, it should be indicated on your exam schedule, and there's a classroom that is indicated. Question 6.
Sorry, I stopped talking because she was talking about the exam, but we definitely should have our exam scheduled because they literally just sent an email saying that they weren't giving it until the 11th.
Exam schedule already. It has been posted on Vives even. And now they took it offline because they have to adjust it with classrooms. But normally you already know when you have your exams.
No.
You went 3 weeks ago.
No. Oh my gosh.
No, you still don't have it. She even didn't give you a preliminary one or what? That's really strange.
No, it's not because they're not official, because they haven't been released. Oh my gosh.
Class representative, and every representative gets the exam schedule and can give feedback on that. Of course, if you don't have a class representative, then you don't have this, of course, but it's not good. She was about to give us class, but she had no information, so she didn't have that. You still have to wait. Yeah, of course. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can say it for international trade and payment procedures, but I cannot say it for the rest, of course. Yes, it's not the official one, indeed. So you have already a schedule. It's not the official one, but normally it should not change that much.
Okay.
As an Erasmus student, you don't have a representative, that's right. But still, there should be somebody in the normal program that is a representative for us. Next year, I am the teachers, how do you call that? The teacher of 2 of the 2nd year of the English program, and I demand a representative student. No way that class won't have a representative student. I need somebody I can email to if I have questions, or that they can email me when I have questions.
Okay,
we
so
know who your class teacher is. But we have any information about our exam. But for the exam of international trade and payment procedures of 10 days, yeah. Then you have to get in contact with Ms. Braakman and ask for more information. Yeah, I know.
Okay, sorry. They're talking about exams, and we literally just got an email saying that our exam schedule wasn't being released until the 11th. Now, I happen to be a representative, and we got the preliminary exam where we got to fight for different things, but we were only able to move one class. But from what I understand, the big issue right now is space. So and she's basically saying that the preliminary schedule was like the schedule, but it's not. Okay, no, we're gonna leave that. Yeah, my children are already picking up the West Flemish accent, which is really funny because Prince Charming's family is from East Flanders. Study Spanish. Oh, my teachers. Here, you guys, if you want.
And you need to give a clear overview of the process and explain each step carefully. This is the overview where you have the seller, the buyer, and then the advising bank and the issuing bank. Important is that you also include the party or the name of the party in the overview and then the different steps. So what we have in case...
Yeah, she explains it in a roundabout way. Sorry, I'm a bit distracted. I was sort of surprised that she was saying all this stuff about the exam because I actually contacted my friend who's also in the class, but we talk outside in Instagram because we're both representatives and we've gone to the meetings. Like, we know about the exams. Like, we're in contact with the one girl who actually does. She's like the contact person between us and the teachers who are in charge of making the exams. And the teacher is just being like, no, you 100% should have this information. And it's, no, we 100% do not have this information. And the fact that she's saying that the exam is going to be this, 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 and this is just a bunch of BS because, I mean, the email that they sent were already saying that they need to find spaces where we can take the exam. I mean, that's why they haven't released it. And they even specifically stated in the email that there is a chance that some exams may be postponed of hours or date in the January examination period. So yeah, it's 100% not ready because they might even be postponed or the whole January period will be extended because, you know, Corona, and she's, Okay, so I'm starting to lose my voice. My education was split over UK, Belgium, and France. Lived in 4 different countries, and it ended up with me having an accent that sounds foreign no matter where I am and which language I speak. I feel you there. Because what's interesting is that in my head, I have a very American accent, except when I go home. And my mom tells me, no, I don't have an American accent. And yeah, apparently whenever I'm speaking in different languages, I don't have an American accent even when I'm speaking in French or Dutch, apparently. When I speak in French, I just have an accent that's undistinctive. So yay, but not French. And then I've been told a mix of everything when I speak Dutch. I've been told that I sound French. I've been told that I sound English. I've been told that I sound like I'm from West Flanders. So I guess, I don't know. I guess it depends on the time of day and what I feel like on that day. Okay, I know I'm harping on this, but I'm actually really upset with this teacher's just sort of passive-aggressive attitude about the exams. That makes me angry. Like, it's okay if she doesn't know the answer, but she shouldn't be telling students that, yeah, this is information that you should already know. Because it isn't, because it hasn't been released. And the sad thing is that the students who are asking it were the foreign students, and some of them are in precarious situations because some of them had to go home. And so coming back for the exams is like this whole drama because they have to come back to Belgium and they have to be in quarantine for like 10 days or something. It was probably a bad idea for me to all of a sudden get involved in the conversation when I hadn't answered anything during this review. But this will probably be one of those lessons, because she records the classes, thank you, where I will watch back on fast forward just so that I can copy down the correct answers in the notes so that I can compare it to the case files when I'm studying. Because that to me is so much easier in understanding. Because her train of thought or her reasoning behind the way she answers the questions really makes no sense to me. Because she'll start on one document and then go back to the other document, and it's just going back and forth. And I think because it's online and I don't have multiple screens, I can't see what she's doing. And so just to have everything in front of me with the answers of how I know it's supposed to be, it just works so much better. Man, school online is difficult. Oh, I can tell you, inconspicuous, I've had some interesting conversations with my teachers because I swear, like, there aren't that many students who are very interactive with the class. Even when we were on campus, people weren't really interactive. And I'm like the only student, I feel like, who will even argue with the teachers and just blatantly tell them, you're wrong. And I've spoken to some of the other students, and even they're like, I can't believe you said that. But I have this very different mindset when it comes to school because I'm there to learn, they're there to teach. If I'm not learning, they're not doing their job. And seeing as I'm paying to go to the school, that's an issue because I'm paying their salary, which I don't think is a mindset that everybody has. That's very American. Everyone did at home. Have you learned Blueprint in business class yet? Like blueprints, or is that a program? Because Blueprint seems like something that you would learn in architecture. Blueprint. I'm looking at Blueprint marketing now. Oh, okay. So you mean like a business plan? No, we haven't learned that yet. Let's see. One of the teachers will be assigned to you, be the American Whisperer. I think so. But I'm lucky because with most of my teachers, it seems to be either a hit or miss. Either they really like me because I interact with the class and I bring a different perspective and I challenge them, and they're that kind of person that is very inspired and they really like to teach. So my questions, they like that. Or they're one of those teachers that it's just, they want you to sit down, shut up, and listen, and my remarks aren't that welcome. But I don't care. I lived in Antwerp. I live in the parking lot. I learned that for a while, and we were surrounded by like proper Dutch people. And I kind of picked up the straightforwardness in speech from them. You know, it's so interesting because Belgians are supposed to be like straightforward and direct. And I personally don't see it. I mean, I do consider them more straightforward and direct than, say, when I was living in France, but I found that for myself, I have to be careful what I say. I can't be as direct or straightforward as I would be, because if not, I end up offending people. But the nice thing is that if there are problems, like Belgians will just come out and say it, and I like that. Like, it makes communication so efficient. That's a perfect word, skittish, yeah. But that's something that I learned when I was taking Dutch classes. Like, we talk about stereotypes, and I think perhaps it just depends on what country you come from, because there were certainly people from different areas around the world who would make the observations that for them, the Belgians were really direct and straightforward, and for me, they're not. I mean, in some instances, sure, but in other instances, no. Like, we're taking communication classes, and one of the things that we're learning is how to take feedback and how to interact with people. And I had to answer the question, in what circumstances would it be difficult for you to tell somebody no? And I was answering the question, but the teacher came back and said, okay, well, in this instance, what would you do? And I said, well, I wouldn't act like this. Like, life is too short to be in a situation that you don't like. If I had an issue with my boss, I would just tell my boss the issue. And if their way of dealing with it was to fire me, then that's only a good thing for me, because obviously that work environment was bad and I'll just go and get a new job. And she was very surprised by my answer. And that to me seemed like what you should do. Like, if you have an issue, just talk to the person that you have an issue with. That's the easiest way to solve it. When I go back to civilization and I'm in the UK, speaks English and I can understand everyone. Okay, I have a question though, because what's your nationality? Are you Belgian or are you British? I feel you with the understanding of English. Like, that's a really weird, like, reverse culture shock, I guess you could call it, when I go back home and I'm listening to the radio and it's in English, or I go to the grocery store and the cashier speaks English, or I go to a restaurant and it's in English. And I understand everything and I don't need to think about it. But it's also so weird that everything is in English and that I don't have to think about it. And it's also in those moments where I realize just how much of my day is spent concentrating on language and how to understand people, that when I go home, it's just effortless. Okay, so Belgians indicate problems and they will tell you what works and what not. But once they tell you, they likely have judged you and also see other perspectives. It's interesting. See, I guess my biggest, we'll say, experience with Belgians has come from school. And I would say that it's left the most positive impression on me, to be honest, to the point that I'm not sure I'd feel comfortable working in a Belgian company or even necessarily hiring Belgians just based on how the school runs, because there's a certain level of incompetency that goes on that I don't understand how. Like, I don't understand. It's like, I understand that when you go and you work for a company, that there are definitely going to be people that just don't do their job, maybe because they don't like their job or it's just a stepping stone, but you still get the job done. Because I had this interaction where I needed to make a post because I'm part of the social media team, and I made the post. And then the teacher came back the next day and said I needed to rework the post because it needed to match the formatting of the school. Not an issue. And then we'll say 4 days, I think, went by, and then literally the night before, they were saying that I needed to do an animation. I was just like, okay, I've already redone this post twice. Either post what I created or make the animation yourself. And I don't know what they ultimately did because I just washed my hands of the situation, because that to me was just a level of incompetency that I think if I was younger, I would just, put my head down and go through it. But part of the reasons why I've gone to school to learn business is because, well, that's essentially what I'm doing. And I feel like knowing these courses will help me be a better entrepreneur. And being in social media and working in teams to promote a product, these are things that I have experience with. And I can tell you 100%, if I had a team member that acted like my teacher, she would just be fired. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. That would not be an option. And if I was working for a team that the boss was acting like my teacher, I would just quit. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, because, just, again, life is too short to be in a situation, well, a long-term situation, if it's not something that you enjoy. And the only reason that I put up with it is because I'm in school and it's temporary. Otherwise, just no. So I'm just rowing the boat along and not trying to rock it too much because it's temporary. That's what I keep telling myself. But the thing that sort of annoys me is that the person in question actually has experience in sales, and it's flabbergasting to me that I'm taking a course in business and social media is so relevant, I think, in selling anything online today, and yet nobody seems to know anything about social media. Yokel. I've heard that some of the other students say that the whole area is nothing but conservative, racist farmers. And I don't know, I think maybe because I'm an outsider and everything is just foreign to me and it sort of has that magical feel about it that I don't see that. Or it could also be that maybe the conservative racist in Belgium is just so much different to what I would view as a conservative racist. because I have conservative racists in my family. Like, they have cut me out of the family because I married a Belgian and I married somebody who wasn't white. And just like, how dare I live in Belgium? It's socialist. It's like, it's not. Ethan, you make a good point. That's also a big pet peeve of mine, particularly with this class, international trade, because one of the first lessons we talked about is why international trade is important, and the first thing she brought up was that it can be cheaper to make products in other countries, and that rubbed me the really wrong way, because more likely than not, the reason why they're cheaper in other countries is because those countries don't have worker rights for their citizens. And that's one thing that really irks me, that when you have companies like the US, for example, who makes clothes in India, like, there's nothing wrong with exporting that, but I think that foreign companies should have to live up to the standards of their home country. So just because you only have to pay 15 cents for people to make shirts for a day in India doesn't mean that an American company should be allowed to do that. They should have to pay the minimum wage that's expected in the US. And I know, blah, 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 like, that's not sustainable, but I would say if you're exploiting people, you're a garbage person. And I really don't understand how people can live with themselves and do that. And that's blame that I put on a company more so than the individual, because I think we've just created a society where if you want to get a t-shirt that's ethically made, we'll say, where nobody was exploited to make it, unless you're making it yourself, it's so difficult to do that. And I would say even then it would be difficult, because how do you ensure that the yarn or the fabric that you bought was ethically sourced? It's so difficult now. Okay, so KK Renee, my boyfriend lives in Belgium and it's hard to get there. And you've lived there for 3 months though. And then inconspicuous. Why can I not say that word today? Oh my goodness. It wears off when I need to describe Belgium. I just say one field with one cow. Oh, should be one cow and a chicken, to be honest. And then, how did you meet your husband? Okay, so this is a long story. Oh wait, the level in you describe as common, seen a lot with certain bubbles of fast, and the rest can follow. Yeah. Okay, so for KK, so when I was still in high school, I wanted to do a year abroad, and I went to France, and my husband was one of the volunteers in the program that I went with. And it was really one of those super romantic moments where I saw him and I was like, oh my God, he's really good looking, because he's a very attractive man, to be honest. And from that, I was like, that's going to be the guy that I marry. And yeah, but it wasn't so nice because I was judging him by his looks. But when I started to get to know him, he really had everything on my list. Like, oh my gosh, he's honorable, he's thoughtful. Stupid tractors. See, I live where Inconspicuous said. I live next to the big field where there's just a cow. Anyway, husband is thoughtful, honorable, kind, just an incredible man. And I really thought, like, oh my gosh, this guy is amazing, but there's no way that he would even look at me because he is just so amazing. He could literally have any woman that he wanted, but he chose me. So yay, I won. And we lived in France for 10 years because that's where he was living, but he's Belgian. And once we had kids, you realize that being close to family is important. So we moved to Belgium, even though that required sort of me having to start over. But in the end, it turned out really great because now I get to pursue something that I probably wouldn't have considered doing if we were still in France. A carrot museum? Are carrots a thing here? If anything, it should be a potato. I swear, I'm blind because the comments are here and they're so tiny. I think I answered them all. Oh my goodness, it's only been an hour. And there's still an hour and 15 minutes of this class. And she's still, it looks like, answering, well, writing the whole paper for the casework. Sorry, Tuna. Aw. See, one of the sucky things about doing online classes is that my friend was just messaging me how her Chrome just froze and her computer crashed because the Blackboard just is not compatible with certain computers. Like, honestly, see, I'm very privileged right now because I have two computers because I bought this one, which is my school computer, and I literally only use it for school. And then the computer that this is running through is the old one. And the only reason why I got this one is because that one started making weird noises. And the other day it crashed. And if we end up having to take online tests, I needed something a bit more reliable. And I swear, the only good thing about this computer is that my Blackboard does run a lot better. KK, where are you from? Okay, I did not know that there was a carrot museum. I'm going to look this up. There is an actual carrot museum, but they say that it's in England. No, Azerty is stupid. I hate it. No. No, actually, I was really excited because in France, everything was the whole Azerty thing. And I kept buying laptops in the US specifically to bring over. And, oh, okay. We're going on a break. Yay. So now I don't have to feel bad about ignoring the class. And it was this whole pain in the butt because I'd have to get the extension cord adapter because it would be for the American outlets. And I've never been able to buy a computer in Europe, which makes it really annoying if your computer breaks because then they can't get the parts. And technically it's illegal to ship computer parts, which I've never done. Never. Ever. But looky, this is a Belgian computer, and look at the beauty of this. It's QWERTY. It had the option. I love Belgium. Belgium is the best country ever because it lets you choose if you want a normal QWERTY computer or if you want the other one. Okay, so you're from Florida, so you're from the US. Why can't you just move to Belgium, especially if you want to get married? Oh, you're not ready to marry yet. Okay, so the only way that I know that you could go to Belgium, especially if you don't want to marry, would be one, to do a visitor's visa, which means that you won't be able to work. I don't know what kind of income you're looking at, but if he's willing to support you, you could live there for a year, do a sabbatical or something. That's something that I did because, oh, your chat froze. I lost my train of thought. Oh yes, the visitor's visa. I did that the first year that I lived in France, mainly because I wasn't sure that I wanted to live in France, to be perfectly honest. But I would say that if you're going, okay, this is going to be me giving you some, we're going to say relationship advice that perhaps you didn't ask for. Welcome back, by the way. Take it with a grain of salt, but I would say that, and this is just what I applied to myself, that when I eventually did go to France, we had already talked about marriage, and we both knew that that was something that we both wanted. And I will say that if you are going to go to Belgium to be with this person, like realistically, the easiest way to obtain residency will be through marriage, because it's very unlikely, unless you are in some hyper specialized career or job, or if you work freelance, for example, and you can sort of live and work off your computer, it's unlikely that you're going to find a job. Like that's the exception, not the norm. I know so many people that when they want to move, they're like, I'm going to find a job. It's like, I have permanent residency, and the only jobs that I'm qualified for are in factories or to clean. And it's unlikely that they're going to import somebody to work in a factory or to clean. That's just me being honest. Well, I'm pretty sure if you want to marry, yeah, the visitor's visa is normally really easy to do, at least. Well, I shouldn't say that, because I did the visitor visa when I was in France. And so inconspicuous would probably be somebody to like put their insight here, since they worked in immigration. But I can share that from my personal experience, I did the visitor visa for 1 year to see if I could even make it in France, because, you know, moving abroad, starting an adventure, it sounds really romantic, but at the end of the day, all the problems that you have in your country are going to be the same problems that you have in a foreign country, only now you have a lingual barrier and twice the amount of paperwork. So, yeah. And then if you're going to get married, that's going to involve way more paperwork. You have to decide, do you want to get married in the US and then have to have your marriage certificate recognized by the Belgian government, which from personal experience, the Belgian government is super chill. You just send it in and they accept it. Or you can get married somewhere else and have to have your marriage certificate recognized in the US. I would not recommend it because it's expensive and it's difficult. That's why I got married in the US, because just way too much work. Oh, well, there you go. So much easier than that. Oh, well, KK, I'm happy that I look young. Yay. But if it's helpful to you, I did all this the first time when I was 19, and then I got married when I was 22. So if I can do it then, you can definitely 100% do it now at 27, because you are older and wiser than I certainly ever was. I'm wondering, why do you want to wait a year? I mean, there's nothing wrong with waiting, but at least for Belgium, like part of your residency will be that you need to take an integration course and that you have to take Dutch to level 2. And realistically, no matter what kind of job you're going to go into, you're going to need to know the language. And entry level for any job, like serious job, is going to be at least to level 6. However, even level 6 is really low level. I did up to level 7, and honestly, one of the things that really attracted me to the school that I'm currently going to was that I was going to be able to take Dutch. The issue is that there are not enough people who don't know Dutch, and so the only opportunity to further Dutch is to go to the CBO school, which was outside of the school, and it was this whole process because I'd have to take night classes, so I didn't do it. But that is something that it's difficult. That's the only way to say it. And even, like, I was a full-time Dutch student, if you will, and it took, we'll say, 2 years. And then there's a whole waiting list for the integration course. But the integration course is really gold. Always the typical Belgian. You should feel, what's the great word? I guess, like, honored that he's considering marrying you, because that's a really weird thing over here, to be honest. My in-laws were together for 30 years, and my father-in-law will joke that they got married to bump up the statistics. Well, not all of the classes, and it sort of depends where you live, because where does your boyfriend live? Because I live in Loreningen, and the only course available in English close to me was business management and entrepreneurship, which is why I took it. Wait, did he tell you that he wants to marry you to bump up the statistics? That's hilarious. Is he on the French side? That sounds like a French name. I'm looking it up. Michelin. I don't know my cities and towns that well, but that looks very French. I could be wrong. Oh, it's between Brussels and Antwerp, so it's on the Dutch side. Is it? Yeah, looks like it's on the Dutch side. Okay, no, you should actually be really well situated then. Yeah, because my issue is is that I live in West Flanders, and really all the, we're going to say, international, they're not international, it's just schools that have English programs, are around the Brussels, Antwerp, and Leuven area, which is just too far for me. And so if you're going to be within, it doesn't look like it would be that far, but if you're between Brussels, like Brussels is an international city, literally. So you could probably very easily find a school in Brussels that will have an English program. But for me, I'd say it's more difficult because my only options were Ghent and Bruges, and Ghent University doesn't offer any English courses, and I didn't see anything offered at Bruges, and Vives is a hogeschool, which technically isn't a university, it's like a college, but college and university, I feel, are defined differently over here than in the US, but it offers a business management. But I also have a friend who lives just outside of Antwerp, and she's doing IT. And so her courses are also in English. But I think that you should be really nicely situated that I don't want to say you'll have every program available to you. I think you'll just have better options where I only have the one. Because Antwerp will definitely have it. Brussels should definitely have it, and you should be close enough to Leuven that KU Leuven has quite a few English programs. Okay, well, here's the whole thing. If you're living, I don't know how it would work if you're there on a visitor's visa. But I know that when you get your residency, you need to take language courses. And so, yeah, you'd have, okay, backing up. So in Belgium, they will pay for you to take an integration course. And if you take the integration course, they'll also pay for you to take the language courses. And the only thing you have to pay for is your books. And I would highly suggest if you're going to live in Belgium and you're thinking, oh, I'm going to make a life, then focus on learning the language. That's going to be the most useful thing to you. And if you're taking the language courses, it's going to be every day, 5 days a week. And if you're taking up to level 6, and well, really, if you're living where you're going to living, you'll have the option to take to level 10, which personally I would suggest. It's probably going to take you 2 years just to learn the language. But that's just my 2 cents. I mean, you can get by on English, but I would still suggest learning the language. And especially if you're eventually going to get married, you're going to have to do the residency part. And the residency contract that you have to do will require you to take Dutch lessons. So it's something that you're going to have to do either way. So if you want something to do that's productive, just take the Dutch classes because you're going to have to do it anyway, and they're useful. And as to can you work online, something that you'll want to consider is that you're an American, and one of the things that I'm talking, Tractor, be quiet. One of the things that America has in common with North Korea is that we have citizenship-based taxes. So no matter where you live, if you earn an income, you're required to file a tax return, even if you don't live in the US. And that's a real big pain in the butt. I suggest that you do it right, because if you screw it up, they're going to say that you are committing fraud. It's a pain in the butt. So, I mean, personally, if your boyfriend is willing to support you for a year and you could just focus on taking classes, I would just take the classes and not worry about earning an income, because you're going to have to deal with 2 sides of taxes there. Because if you're living in Belgium, you'll have to file taxes in Belgium, and you'll still have to file with the US, and it's just double the amount of paperwork. You know, I really like where we live, and it's sort of sad that people say such bad things about it. It's just, it is the boonies. It really is, but I like the boonies. It's nice. Okay, I have to indicate that I'm back because we were on a break. It's not always tractors though, it's cars. This is a double glass window thing, but so much sound still comes through. I think it's because of this. That's how the sound gets through so much. I'm not sure. Which anybody who's wondering about this little door, which I tell people it's the fairy door, it's actually the mailbox. Isn't that cool? Now you know. The y'all part of Belgians. Yeah, I had a very interesting conversation because sometimes my Pittsburghese comes out and I'll say "yins guys," which is it's very dialect. It's very Pittsburgh. If you hear "yins guys" or "yuns guys," you know that that person's from Pittsburgh, and it's not something that you hear outside of it. And so if you're speaking to somebody, like most people will have heard of y'all, nobody's have heard of "yins guys." It's really difficult because I try to like beat that out of my vocabulary because I want to be understood. We're still working on case 3, by the way. She's not done yet. And this document is already 13 freaking pages long. Oh my gosh. See, it's basically you get a document and then you have to write a freaking paper on it. And just to give you an indication of the great stuff, she has like 40E. LC is prepared according to UCP's latest version equals Unified Rules and Practices on Documentary Credits. International regulation endorsed by most countries of the world with the aim to avoid conflicts. Blah, 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 blah. And it just continues. So that's why I feel like it'd be so much easier just to just study this later, because it's a document and summary of what we're supposed to be doing. Though I should say I can only ignore these classes because I actively study these classes. And if I miss them, it's not that big of a deal, to be perfectly honest. Especially with this one, because we're doing casework, which is essentially a review of everything that we've already learned, just applying it through the documents, which we've already learned. So I'm not missing much. See, I couldn't do this tomorrow. Well, I sort of can, but I end up ignoring the camera more because I have to pay attention. Because in talent development and communications, that's more interactive, and we actually learn useful things, sort of, like how to talk to people. And I learned that I'm sort of abrasive, but that's okay. It's my Americanism. I'm going to slowly convert to Belgium. Show them what being direct is really like. Oh, but KK, if you end up moving to Belgium, you should direct message me on Instagram or Twitter or even Facebook. All of that is linked. It should be linked in the description below. And also, if you go to the main page of my channel, there's the little icons in the corner, because I really enjoy meeting Americans who live in Belgium, because there aren't that many of us. And then if you like, I can introduce you also to Claire, and you can talk to her, because she also actually did the process of moving to Belgium and marrying a Belgian, and so she would probably know better than I do, because I sort of started in France, then moved to Belgium, so my process is different. So I could give you her contact info. I should have another thing of water. Oh, I forgot about my tea. It's cold now, and I left the tea bag in there because it's really, really strong and bitter. That's okay. That's why I like it. I'm sure that there's probably some British person out there who I may just cringe and trigger with my tea. Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, the weather. I could go on and on about the weather. Holy crap. Belgium. Let's have a discussion about rain. Okay? If water falls from the sky, it is rain. That's it. Thank you for attending my TED Talk. That was everything. No, see, I was thinking that if you're from Florida, we can joke about all the Florida jokes. I actually read the funniest thing that said, Florida man breaks into home to cook residents breakfast and then sent them back to bed when they caught him. Only in Florida. That's all I'm going to say. Only in Florida. Sort of Claire, who she's been on the channel. You guys should check out that video if you want. She is from California, and in California it doesn't rain. And it was funny because during the live stream she was telling how if it rained, like things just close down. Like it's raining, oh, you can't go to class because it's raining. What can you do? Nobody goes out in the rain, and that's really funny. Oh, you saw that too. Yeah, that was a really interesting story. But just, I sometimes feel like the Florida stories sort of remind me of like the Belgian stories, because I remember like there's always these really weird stories that just end up on the news that I wonder, like, is this really newsworthy? Like a while ago, and I mentioned this before, there was a story about some kids who kicked a door, attempted robbery. There was like some video of some kids that tried to open a door. They kicked the door. Nothing was damaged. Nothing happened. But yeah, that was on the news. It was funny. There was also a report that I saw of, I guess, the Belgians bragging about their awesome weather because there was 38 minutes of sunshine over 11 days. And I remember reading that and thinking, oh, I must have missed that 38 minutes because I don't remember seeing the sun. But stories like that. But it's also sort of weird because the news, there isn't local news like there is in the US. It's like you get this small little sliver of in Belgium, and then it just automatically goes to international news because I don't think anything happens in Belgium, which is nice, but also it's sort of odd. So I'm used to more gun violence on the news, like somebody getting shot. And that's peculiar that that's not on the news more often over here. One field, one cow. Or it could just mean that, you know, everybody's more well behaved over here. I think that could be true. Hold on. Oh, no, okay. I like the pace of life here. That's one thing that I often contemplate about life in Europe. And I'm going to use broad strokes and say Europe, even though when I say that, it's mainly Belgium and France, because that's my experience. But based on conversations that I've had with other people within the EU, it seems that this approach to some extent is followed a bit everywhere. But in the US, we have this very capitalistic mindset. And don't get me wrong, obviously I'm going to be a little bit biased, and I can't poo-poo on it that much, because who doesn't like to make profit and be rich? But I think one of the issues with the capitalistic mindset is that it creates an environment which is overall on a societal level really bad if there aren't checks to keep everybody safe. And I mean safe in a way that in Belgium, I have a privileged life. And I put that in quotes because in Belgium, it's not privileged. It's pretty normal. And I don't want to say, oh, Belgium is the shining example of perfection. Of course not. It isn't. It has its problems. It's just there isn't this chasm between the classes like there are in the US. Fundamental freedom. And so that's something that's really interesting because I have this mindset in my mind where for me it's really normal that if you go to work, like when you're at work, you work. If something happens to your spouse or your child, like it doesn't matter, it has to wait, you're at work. And there was this instance where I fell off my bike and I actually had to go to the emergency room, and I was sort of freaking out about what we were going to do with the children because there was no way I was going to be able to go and get them, you know, obviously in a hospital. And my husband was at work and it didn't even cross my mind that he would be able to come and visit in the hospital and leave work without possibly getting fired. And that's something that really culture shocked me because his work was just like, yeah, go to the hospital. Like he wasn't docked pay. He didn't have to use a vacation day. There wasn't some negative consequence where he was like put on a step and if something else happened, like he'd be fired. It was just, no, there's something wrong with your family. You have to go deal with it. Go deal with it. And that's something that doesn't exist back home. Like there was this strict understanding between my mother and I that if I got sick, I stayed home, even if I felt like even a little bit sick, because my mom would 100% not be able to come pick me up or she would be fired. Like things like that. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, there's some, we'll say this, there's this American lifestyle or mindset. And one of the things that I've noticed is that in Europe, you have companies that have the European mindset, where it seems, and this is just from my perspective as a non-European, is that it's family first, that there seems to be this understanding that you come to work to do a job, but your job is not your life. Versus you also can have companies that are more of the American style, where it's you go to work and that is your life. And I sort of like the idea that I'm doing a job and it's a job that I'm going to try my hardest and be as productive as possible, but my job is not my life and my family comes first. And I think the overall setup of society here allows for that. So you have school that starts at, say, 9 o'clock. Or no, when does school start? I don't know, but there's time to allow parents to actually take their children to school and start work after that. And that's something that was really cool for me, because I've never been in a position where I felt like I need to choose my children or my work. And that's something that I know that for growing up, my mom didn't have that option. It was, she had to work and I came second. And it's not because that's how she wanted it. It's just that's how society works. Work to live, don't live to work. Yeah, sort of like that. Plus, it's also really nice because Belgium has really affordable education, so I can go to school and not go into debt, or at least not go into debt that I can't pay off. It's nice. Okay, so I'm going to turn my class up so that you guys have something to listen to.
The due date in a minute.
And I'm going to go on a bathroom break. So enjoy international trade and payment procedures.
Drawer, drawee, expiry dates, and date of issue. So, what is the drawer in theory? And who is the drawer in this case? How can you explain what the drawer is? Yeah, the person ordering the payments, indeed. It is the party that draws up the bill of exchange, giving a delay of payments. And indeed, this is Bekaert, the seller. The drawee is then the person involved. It is the person or the party that accepts the bill of exchange by signing it. Party that does the actual payment. And in our case, this is Mizuho Bank in Indonesia. Because this is the big code MHECIDXXX. That's the big code of Mizuho Bank. What is then the expiry date? How can you say that in words, what the expiry date is? Yeah, the deadline, indeed, the due date of the bill of exchange.
This is like Dora the Explorer for adults. Okay, you're gonna have to explain that one. How was the payment international trade and payment procedures? It's such an exhilarating class, I know. Just so much fun. I'm very dedicated to listening and stuff. But to be honest, part of me wants to document just this time because I know I'll forget it, and then it'll be nice in the future to look back and remember, oh yeah, that's when I didn't like school. Ah, she's still working on case 3. That's the sad thing.
Where did I find the 60 days over here? All the bill of exchange, it's mentioned in the expiry date box. So let's assume the 3rd of
Yeah. This is my relaxing week, in case anybody was wondering, because next week is when I plan to get all of my materials ready so that I can start studying after the 18th. And if anybody's interested, I'm going to be doing study sessions where I won't be talking as much like I am now because, well, if I'm not paying attention to class right now, it's not that much of an issue. But to ensure that I study, I plan to live stream it because otherwise I might procrastinate and not study, which would not be good. Well, yeah, now you see, I think part of the issues with this class is that most of the people who are taking it take English or know English as a second or third language, and I feel like so much of the class is just explaining stuff so that people who speak English as a second language can understand it. And so if you have somebody like me who speaks English as a native English speaker, it's just boring because it's like saying, see the dog run. Which word's the verb? And so if you don't know English, then figuring out the verb is actually going to be difficult. But if you know English, then it's like, it's this one. See, this is why I can blow off this class, because I'll just watch this and like fast forward, and I can learn the exact same stuff in half the time. Not even half, it's probably 15 minutes. Well, I think she also pauses because she's waiting for people to answer in chat, but most people aren't answering in chat because she did a poll, and out of the whole class, I think I can tell you because I think there was a portion of the people who did not even answer yet. 7 people did not respond, 11 people prepared the exercise, and 14 people didn't. And if you look in the chat, it's like the same 5 people who are answering her questions. And so if they don't know it, nobody else is really participating, to be honest. And I hate to say, but a lot of the questions that she's doing, it's really simple. And I don't understand why she's making this casework stuff. Because, I mean, unless I'm missing something, which I don't think I am, like the case part is the most easy part of everything that we learned. Because you're seriously you're given a certain document and then you have to explain each box, which is not difficult. And especially with the way that she wants it done, it's like just listing the stuff that's in the box in a complete sentence. Like, it's not rocket science. Versus like the theory of everything that we're learning, that's more difficult because we have to remember stuff like, we have to remember dates for one thing, and that's not fun. Especially for me because it's all European dates. So things like when was the Treaty of Rome and Lisbon signed and created? And I don't know that crap because we didn't learn European history outside of World War I and World War II. And we have to know all the member states of the EU. We need to know which member states use the euro, which are in the Schengen. I always call it the Shanghai because that's what it sort of looks like, but the Schengen reason, European travel zone thing, and it's not always the same countries. And then we need to know the Incoterms. And I feel like if you know what the abbreviations are, so like X Works, which is X Warehouse, so basically once they're loaded, like the seller has all the responsibility, that those are really easy to work out just based on what they're called. But she makes it so difficult because she had us have these charts where we had to like do this line of, well, this is where the responsibility ends. but then for the test, that's not even how she asks it. So I don't understand what the point of learning those little tables were.
So in short, is 10% higher than the invoice value.
Oh, and then you need to know which countries use the euros, because not all of them use the euros, because that's useful.
The fact that we have this.
Yeah, the Schengen. I feel like Shanghai is a much better name, just to be honest. But yeah, see, that's all like information that I'm not necessarily certain that's useful to know. Like, I don't know if you're actually being sarcastic when you say that, but at least in my mind, it's like knowing the 50 states. Like, sure, if you can name all 50 states, awesome. I used to be able to do that because that was a requirement for the test, but it's one of those things that knowing 50 states doesn't make me a better person or more intelligent in any way, shape, or form. So I can't do that anymore because it's more useful to know Dutch verbs or German verbs, to be honest. What is your curriculum for the semester and how many credit hours do you have? Okay, that is a very good question, and that actually reminds me that you asked a question earlier and I think I ignored, and I'm really sorry. So let me scroll up and see what that was. So I think I got distracted. Okay, yeah. If a person wants to start a business, what priorities must he have? Consider quantity, quality, or something else? And I think that would depend on what kind of business you want to start, in my opinion, and where you're starting it. Because I would say if you're starting something in the US, then you're probably looking at quantity because nobody gives a crap about quality. That's just the honest truth. You look at something like McDonald's. McDonald's in the US is very different from McDonald's in Europe. The quality over here is much better. In fact, any fast food is much better over here because there's actually a quality aspect. If you're going to start something in Europe, I would say focus on quality because that's more important. But I think everything sort of depends on your market because you could do quality or quantity as long as you have the people to sell it to. I mean, here's a great example because I like books and I love to write. And you have people who are really into producing high quality work, and that's great. But you have other people who are writing books that we'll say are lower quality and are probably doing better than the people who are writing the higher quality books because they have more books and they have the market that they can reach out to. And if you look at Corona, there's already Corona romance available. And there's this one author who she's been featured in a couple videos on YouTube because she has just been spitting them out. I think she has like 50 Corona themed romance books. It's just mind-boggling how many of these things exist. But it works. You just need to have your market. And for myself, I'm trying to focus on quality, but also keeping in mind of quantity because we have this sort of instantaneous relationship with products and wanting more now. So that's just my 2 cents. Okay, hold on. I'm going to answer your second question. 2 seconds. Sorry, it doesn't always translate on text, but I was being a bit sarcastic about the usefulness of knowing when the Treaty of Rome was signed. Yeah, dates are not important. Unless it's your birthday, then that's important. I can see the reason to know the Eurozones, but not the treaty dates. I mean, I guess if you did lots of international trade or travel within countries that use the euro, then yeah, you should definitely know which countries are going to accept your money. However, like for me, that's not useful. Okay, and then for the second part of your question, Haitham, is that what is your curriculum this semester and how many credit hours do you have? I don't actually know the answer to that because the school system is very different and I don't understand it. Even though it's been explained to me, my teachers have been so thoughtful and generous in taking the time to actually explain simple things that I don't know because I didn't grow up with the system. But I have 10 classes, and I think there's a total of 20 credits, maybe? Or maybe they're all worth 3, so maybe there's 30 credits. Or there might be more, because I think some of them are worth 4. Oh, wait, no. I think it's 80 in total. And some of them are worth 3, some of them are worth 4. But I am changing like 8 of my classes after the exams because some of the classes are only a semester. So I know that probably doesn't answer your question fully, but I don't know the answer. Okay, so Europe does have market value added to most anything they create because the country themselves are branded French refinement, Italian style, German technical engineering, and all that stuff. See, that's really interesting because I learn all these things in my classes because I don't know these stereotypes. Like for me, if we're talking about like style, I don't think of Italy. Or like if we're talking about like refinement, I don't think France. And so it's really interesting to hear the, I'm going to say, European perspective of things, especially companies from the US. Because in the marketing class, we were talking about ice cream last week. We were talking about Haagen-Dazs and Ben & Jerry's, and it was so insightful to hear my teacher describe these 2 ice creams because they were completely different to how I perceive them. Because for him, you know, they're 2, we're going to say, premium luxury brand ice creams, but the German one was, I don't know, more sophisticated or elegant, and Ben & Jerry's was more the rebel. And it was so funny because for me, it's like Haagen-Dazs isn't really like a luxury brand for me. It's just expensive ice cream that doesn't taste exactly that great. If I'm going to be honest, like their flavors are sort of boring in my opinion. And then you have Ben & Jerry's who apparently are rebels over here. And from my perspective, it's a fun company that wanted to make interesting ice cream flavors. And so I'm really fascinated by those differences. And I think that's also why I like stereotypes and why I've made lots of videos in the past about stereotypes, because they're so interesting. I love how our environment really creates this perspective of something else. That's why I really love living in Belgium, because there's all these different stereotypes about Belgium. What's not so much fun is that people leave those types of comments on my channel, and I'm just so confused by them. Because I think for some reason people hear, oh, you live here, and then they just assume, oh, because you live there, you know everything about the country, and you don't. That's, for example, perfect example. I was on the live stream with Claire, my American friend, and somebody was joking with her that she had visited the parking lot. And we had just been talking about the Christmas markets, and I thought that the comment was in reference to the Christmas markets, because normally the Christmas markets are held at the town square in the parking lots. And no, it wasn't. It's a Belgian joke, because if you're from Antwerp, everything else that isn't Antwerp is the parking lot. So I learned that I live in the parking lot, and I thought that that was really interesting, but it's also something that I don't know and probably wouldn't know because I don't live in Antwerp. I live in West Flanders, and people like to make fun of me for that, and I don't get half the jokes. Though I have heard about the one field and one cow before, but it was very interesting the first time I heard that. I'm starting to lose my voice. Talking, wow. I'm curious though on why for you knowing the Euro zones would be useful. Do you do lots of traveling? Oh, I feel bad. It looks like people have stopped participating in the class. That's bad. I'm currently having way more fun live streaming me going to school than actually attending school. I mean, I've been so stressed out about the exam period that's coming up. I think that's part because I just don't know what it's going to look like. But I've sort of just gotten it in my mind that I'm going to do well because if I don't, I'll have to repeat the classes. And I really don't want to repeat the classes. So now that I know, one, I don't want to redo the classes, so I'm just going to have to do well. I'm so much more relaxed. Plus, I only have to get half, and then if I fail, they give you an opportunity to retake the test. So it's like, it's so laid back. I will say that one of the greatest things about Belgium that I agree with you is that they know how to take a joke. Because I've been in places where if you say something bad about a place, they will hate you. Like even as an American saying bad things about America, even though they're 100% true, people get upset with me. And it's like, I'm sorry, our healthcare sucks and our education system sucks. It's true that it's better in other places. Like, how is this something that you should be mad at me about? Write a letter to your senator and governor because it's not acceptable. Like, it's not fair that education in Belgium costs 1,000 euros a month. Or not a month, a year. Sorry, my bad. It's literally 1,000 a year. And over 3 years, after 3,000 euros, I will have a bachelor's. Like, it's free. It's essentially free. That's how I look at it. It's free. Because in the US, it would cost a house. I don't know if I agree with the last part, though, because if you look at the election that happened, and I think we finally have governments now. I think I remember reading that. Because for the longest time we didn't, because I think it was the NVA that won, and they're like the nationalistic party. And they're from the Flemish side. So I think it also depends on what side you're on, because the French side seems to be more liberal right now than the Dutch side. And that, to me, just the result of the election was something that blew my mind, because when you look at the little political map thing, it showed that where I live, it's really highly conservative and nationalistic. But I've never experienced that, and I'm a foreigner, and like the nationalistic party is very anti-foreigner, and yet I've never met anybody who's anti-foreigner. I don't know, it's so weird. That's why I sometimes think that perhaps the issue is me, and because I'm an American and I have this definition of conservative and racist, like all the way over here, that perhaps Belgians are that way, but it's just so low key that it doesn't register to me. I don't know. Because I would consider myself, well, I don't know, it depends where I am, because I think in the States, I would have to call myself liberal, but if I'm in Europe, I'd call myself more conservative traditionalist. Because from my perspective, like, everybody's super liberal here. Like, even conservatives are super liberal from my perspective. Oh, it depends on the foreigner. I agree with that. That's something interesting because I sort of have mixed feelings when it comes to the whole foreigner thing, because there are some people who are, frankly, they're very questionable. But we're gonna say that because that's a lot nicer than what I'm thinking, to be honest. And there's this mindset that, oh, if you are a foreigner from this type of country, your life is just a unicorn pooping out happiness and rainbows. And I cannot tell you the number of people who brought up passport power with me, and it makes me want to roll my eyes because, first of all, I'm not a tourist. Second of all, I'm not on vacation. Third of all, I have a residency. I'm building a life here. So that has nothing to do with passport power. I mean, passport power is all about the ability to go on vacation. Like, I'm going to say, if you're a foreigner in the type of foreigner that people are thinking about when they're coming up with policies, they aren't talking about the people who go on vacation. They're talking about the people who come to live in a country. So they're talking about foreigners like me. And the process that I go through is pretty much the same thing that everybody has to go through. It sucks and it's hell. And that makes me really angry. But I will say that definitely there are, like, we'll say bad foreigners who just totally take advantage of the system and have absolutely no respect for the country that they're living in. And that's really annoying because it gives a bad name to everybody. Oh, you're a foreigner from the US. I'm not sure how to take that. Perhaps that was the whole, because you're from the US, life is easy for you. It's like, okay. I can't live in the US because my husband is considered a high risk. So, yeah. Okay, so Google bought YouTube for $2 billion. Then it got $5 billion profits in 1 year. How big companies manage their success so fast? I don't know the answer to your statement, so I'd love to hear your opinion, though. And then to Elliot, yes, in some ways. Okay, so I have questions for you. First of all, are you an American who is living abroad? And if so, do you have dual nationality, which would allow you to have experience of what it's like to be perceived as another nationality trying to live abroad? Because realistically, that's the only way that I think that you could answer that question unbiasedly. Because I think no matter what, like, unless you're a foreigner who is coming over as a refugee, like, that's a completely different experience than, say, somebody like me who moved over to get married and to be with somebody I fell in love with, which is going to be a different experience from somebody who had an opportunity to work abroad and eventually stayed in the country because they found ways to do that, or somebody who wanted to study abroad and because of that they stayed in a foreign country. All of those are very different experiences, but this whole BS that if you come from a certain country you just get a pass and you don't have to do the work, that's, I mean, if that's true, I'd like to see proof of that. Because, I mean, there's so much work that I've had to do. There's so many sacrifices that I've had to make. And as far as I know, based on my own experiences and talking with other people, I don't know anybody who hasn't had that same experience. And I don't know anybody who's somehow, shape, or form had to sacrifice or go through more than anybody else, unless we're specifically talking about somebody who's a refugee. Because that's a whole completely different scenario, because they're either fleeing their country because they're being prosecuted, for example, because of their religion or because of their sexual identity or because of their gender identity, or they've had to flee their country because of war. And so they didn't choose to go to a place, they were forced to it. And that's a situation that, frankly, I don't know what that's like. I can only empathize and offer help in situations where I can do that. But as for the rest, it's just no. Like, if you're from some country and you want to go to school, you're probably going to have to go through the same exact process as somebody else. And not only that, but specifically if we're talking about school, if you're an American who wants to go to school in Europe, you get screwed over compared to all the other countries because you have to pay a price that's normally 5 times more than any of the other countries. So, yeah. I was able to get the European discount by going to Vives because I'm considered an EU member through my marriage. But if I wasn't, I would have had to have paid 5,000 euros to go to school in Vives because, well, Americans have money, we're rich. But that's the price that is based on the country that you come from. And that's not really fair because, well, technically, compared to the US, 5,000 still would have been free. Because, I mean, a year in university in the US would probably be like 30,000 now, 35, 40, who knows? But still. Really? That is surprising. Well, actually, no, I should take that back because I feel like in general, you know, people talk about how open borders are, but they're not. I mean, one of the reasons why we live in Europe is because it was easier for me to come to Europe than it was for my husband to go to the US because we're considered a high-risk couple. And it's for the most stupid reasons. And I remember talking with the immigration officer because the whole thing is that if there's a racial difference, if there's an age difference, if there's an income difference, if there's an educational difference, it's considered a high-risk couple. And when I was talking to this guy, I was like, okay, you realize out of the couple, I'm the loser of the couple. I really am. Like, my husband makes more money than me. He has... Well, once I finish school, we'll at least be at the same educational level. But, like, I was the one that had less money. I was the one that didn't have the education. And they were like, yeah, you're a high-risk couple. But, yeah. It was so weird. And I also didn't want to have to go through what I heard as harassment that you go through with ICE if you're an international couple who's going to live in the US. Like, I don't know what it's like because we ultimately decided not to even try the process. But when we were looking into it, I reached out to people, and the stories that they told me were not pretty. So just my opinion is based on hearsay and not from experience. So take what I say with a grain of salt, but it did seem pretty. What's the weirdest thing you've seen in Belgium? People running in winter with shorts and a t-shirt on. And it's not like, oh, it's winter, like winter in Georgia where it's hot. No, it's winter in Belgium where it's cold. Like, it's cold. Yeah, the whole weather thing in Belgium is really different. We'll say that the Belgian mindset is questionable because that's a really nice way to put it. Because for me, once it starts to get October, that's when it's cold, and I pull out my winter coat because it's cold, and I'll start wearing it because it's cold. And for Belgians, they don't start wearing their winter coats till December because that's when it gets cold. And it's like, no, it's been cold since October. They just don't know it. And I had this whole culture shock when I was going to my integration course in Kortrijk, and I saw this guy running outside in shorts and a t-shirt. And like, it didn't even occur to me that, oh, this is some weird thing Belgians do. I just thought, oh, this is some idiot doing this. And then I talked about it in class, and my teacher was like, oh no, that's normal. I was like, no, it's not. It's not normal. Oh, it looks like class is going to be over. Okay, so we have to do class 6, or case 6. Maybe I'll do it. I'll write it down. We'll see how much time I have. What week are we? Okay, we'll write down case 6 for Tuesday. I'll look at it and see if it's worth doing. It's cold, but we have beer to warm us up. Okay, I will 100% agree that the beer in Belgium is delicious, right? But I don't even think that Belgian beer could get rid of the cold in Belgium because it's a special kind of cold, to be honest. I really don't understand how the cold works sometimes, because I think part of it's the wind chill, because you have the wind that's coming off from the ocean up north, and it's just Arctic, and they'll say it's like 2 degrees Celsius. It's like, how can it only be 2 degrees Celsius? It has to be colder than that. Because I have this long wool, like authentic wool coat. And I'll even pull out my wool scarf, and I'll have mittens, and I'll have a hat. I'll have a long skirt. I'll have stockings. I'll have tights. I'll have a t-shirt and an undershirt and a sweater, and I'll still be freezing to death. It's so cold. It's like, I really wanted to do my live stream like in that corner over there or that corner over there, but that would be too far from the heater because I need to sit next to the heater so that I don't freeze to death, because that's how this works. Will you plan taking a part-time job while you're studying in Belgium? So I technically work because I freelance. I have to change rooms, so 2 seconds, because I still have an hour of class with the International Trade and Payment Procedures is done, and I will go to Introduction to Marketing, which is the class that I had this morning. If you guys were around, it was fun. This one's only for an hour, and I'm probably going to miss a good portion of it because at one point my children will come home and I'll have to deal with them. I'll have to get them settled in. It gets worse inland. West Flanders is relatively moderate in temperature. Oh my goodness. I can't imagine it getting worse because I think it's so cold now. I don't like it. It's getting really dark. I don't think that helped with the lighting. I need that one because now it's overhead and there's shadows. Yeah, that's one thing I don't like about Belgium is that we have this beautiful window and then we have these curtains. Hold on, can you see the curtains? Beautiful curtains, right? The only thing is that if you have light on, people can see in the windows, and I think that's really weird, and nobody seems to give consideration about seeing in the windows. And that's, I think, an American thing, and it freaks me out because people can see inside the windows. I don't like that. Well, I think we brought the kids over when they were 2.5, so I'm not sure if they really remember France that much. So I think, at least from my perspective, they're very Belgian. So for them, they're very Belgian in their mindset. They didn't want to wear their winter coats until the beginning of this week. Hold on, we're gonna listen.
Try to get as far as possible in this subject.
Okay, yeah. My teacher has this thing where he always says that we're going to do like 20 minutes of class and then the last 40 minutes can be dedicated to working on your paper. Except he never stops. He just continues and continues, and then we never get to work on our paper. And it would just, today would be the one day that he does that when I'm live streaming. But I don't think he will. But I will say that actually since moving to Belgium, it's been a lot easier with the children because I don't know how to explain it, but since I'm American, you know, the American holidays were important to me. So those were the holidays that I would promote. So like Thanksgiving, Christmas, on Christmas Day and not Christmas Eve, things like that. And then Prince Charming, since he's Belgian, he would focus on the Belgian ones, so like Sinterklaas, for example. But because we lived in France, they would get the French holidays, but we really didn't do anything with them because we're not French. And I always sort of felt bad for them because essentially they were going to be growing up in a country that wasn't their country. It wasn't my husband's country. It wasn't my country, but they were probably going to feel French. And now that we live in Belgium, it's like this weight has been lifted off of us because, well, their father is Belgian. And so if they feel Belgian, that's acceptable because, well, daddy's Belgian. And I was really worried about them feeling lost when they grew up. So I'm very happy that we're living in Belgium and so that they can have that sort of Belgian mindset and have a country that they belong to. Okay, so outings with family is Prince Charming and the kids normally dress, and with you with 15 odd layers. Okay, so here's the whole thing. No matter if we go out, I'm probably the one that's oddly dressed because I'm allergic to the sun. And that's not an exaggeration. I actually found this out when I was in Belgium because I was riding my bike to and from school and I was getting this rash and it was so bad. And it just so happened that the places on my skin where it wasn't covered, because I still covered myself up, I had this rash and I didn't understand what was going on and it wasn't going away. And because I live in Belgium and there's excellent healthcare, I just went to the doctor. And so at first he told me, just wait and see if it goes away. And we did that and it didn't. And then one day it got so bad. Like my hands were swollen. I was in so much pain. I was crying. I was like, just cut the hands off. I'll figure out how to write with the stub. Oh my gosh, it was so bad. And then they did a thing and they told me that I was allergic to the sun. And essentially, it's not like if I go out, I'll get blisters and die. But if I'm in direct sunlight for, we'll say, like more than 15 minutes, I am going to get like hives. And the hives will stay on my skin for about 2 weeks and they're itchy and painful. So if we're going out on bike rides, which we do a lot, I'm covered up head to toe. And there are times where I convince myself I'm not allergic to the sun, even though I am. And the one time that happened, the in-laws came to visit and we went for like a walk to go to a restaurant and it was in the evening and I was thinking, the sun's really low. I can wear these open sandals and not worry about it. And then I got hives on my feet and I will never, ever, ever do that again. It was just bad. So yeah, in the summer, I'm wearing long sleeves and long skirts and like stuff that covers up my skin when everybody else is wearing shorts. And in the winter, I'm dressed like it's winter. So I'm not the abnormal one. I miss Halloween and Christmas decorations. Like UK does lights versions of what Americans do, but Belgians seem rather modest and like celebrating. Well, I think they tend to go out for Christmas. I like Christmas because at least now across the street where the church is, they have they're like Christmas present boxes in the trees. And I like that. That's pretty. And I don't know if they're going to do it here because I think it might be too small, but in the bigger cities, they'll put like evergreen arches and they'll, between the buildings, they'll string lights and it's really pretty. And for the really old buildings, they'll put lights around them. So the gingerbread buildings look like actual gingerbread houses in Christmas. And the Christmas decorations are 100% different than what we do in the US, but it still makes me happy. But it's more of a European version. But I will say that I miss the different kinds of decorations because in the US you would have Halloween. And you can sometimes find Halloween decorations, but it's not a big thing. Like if you go to the grocery stores are really good about decorating. And so you'll have Halloween decorations. But after Halloween decorations, you also sort of have like fall themed decorations because of Thanksgiving. So you'll have like the little hand turkey or you'll have fall leaves. And then you have Christmas. And over here, it's like, no, they really don't have half of that. It's mainly Christmas. I miss the fall decorations most. Like I really miss carved pumpkins. Like that's something that during Halloween, everybody sets out pumpkins. I remember last year, I think it was, the CBO school in Ypres set up some pumpkins and I lost my mind. I took pictures of it. They're on Instagram. My cat is licking the chair and it's making lots of noise. Okay, how is your French? Is it superb, fantastic? Yeah, I've lost my French in how long have I been here? It's gonna be 4 years, I think, this year that I've lived here because I have not worked on it at all. I mean, my husband tells me it's better than what the Belgians can do, so yay. But I probably don't sound French. And to be perfectly honest, my French was never that good because there came a point where I was just like, what's the point of trying to improve? Because French people are very particular when it comes to French. And it's not like they're extra mean to foreigners. They're just mean in general when it comes to French. A French person will say to another French person that their French sucks. And I think for me, since it was my second language, and I was really nervous about speaking it, and it took so much motivation for me to even go out and attempt to speak French with somebody, those few people who were like, yeah, your French suck, it really just left a negative impression on me. So I stopped caring about improving my French because I was like, I'm going to have more fun triggering people with my bad French. To the point that sometimes I'd go out of my way to just speak French wrong. And that was really bad because then I learned it in the slang version than the proper version. But the nice thing is I give the impression that I'm really good at French because I don't give a crap about butchering it. So I think somebody else who doesn't know French that well, or even to some extent some of the French teachers that I've met over here, they're reluctant to correct me because I speak that confidently because I'm awesome. Okay, so when you started reading Twilight in Dutch, you found out that not only you don't sparkle, you can't be in the sun. That's just an insult, not a injury. Well, you know what the funny thing about me being allergic to the sun is that from the time that I was little, I was called the vampire in my family because I've always been somebody that I've always burned really easily. So when I found out that I was allergic to the sun, I was sort of thankful that it happened to me because literally nothing in my life changed. Seriously, it didn't, because I've always had to be careful when going outside. It's just now if I'm not careful, there are consequences. Whereas before it was just like, oh, I'm probably just going to get burned really bad. Now I just get hives. Okay. On cultural exchange story, my best friend is like online friend from Florida, and we send each other care packages of snacks and so on. Last year in November, I sent speculoos. Oh my gosh, Sinterklaas with that happened on Sunday, which means we have this nice little collection of speculoos cookies, and not the crappy kind, the good kind. They're so delicious. Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh, it had Sinterklaas thingies on them. She freaked out at Zwarte Piet. That makes sense. It became a novelty thing. She showed other people like, oh God, how bad are the Belgians? This is wrong. I actually did a video on Zwarte Piet because that for me was something that was a culture shock. And I don't know, I can see it on both ways because, you know, I've experienced the whole Sinterklaas thing and Zwarte Piet, and based on that experience, I don't think Zwarte Piet is done in a way like the minstrel was, which is what blackface is based on in the US. And so from that observation, I don't think it's necessarily going to be wrong. However, that being said, yeah, it's not something that I would do. It's not something that I personally feel comfortable with. It's also something that I don't like to have in-depth conversations about, just because I think no matter what I say, I'm going to upset people over it, just because there's really nothing that can be said that can change my mind that it isn't something that's racist, because based on the history of where it comes from, it's not pretty. And I understand that there are these different cultures, but I also think that Belgium has a very, we're going to say, difficult past with the Congo, that it's not like, I think something that was just adopted in an innocent way. I don't know. For me, I like the newer version of Zwarte Piet, to be honest. the ones where they're not doing blackface. I like that better, and I think Belgians are doing it, changing the image better and faster than, we'll say, the Netherlands. But I also understand, like, from the perspective of we're going to say the Dutch and Belgians, that, you know, unfortunately, my country is really good at exporting culture. And, you know, there are even times with me as an American living abroad, I find it really annoying that there's this American standard that sort of takes over everything else, that all these other places adopt this thing from my country when it's like their way was perfectly fine. And I feel like, to some extent, if you grew up with something and you were told, like, this is okay, and then you had somebody from America saying, oh, no, 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 this is not okay. Like, this is what it's based on. Even though they're coming from the perspective of their American history. Like, if somebody came to America and, I don't know, started talking about Thanksgiving and how we can't celebrate Thanksgiving because of something that happened in Belgium, you know, my knee-jerk reaction would be like, dude, it's a different history. Just shut up and mind your business. So I totally get it from that perspective, but at the same time, I think that there are Belgians, like Belgians who grew up with this, who are even saying, like, yeah, this doesn't make me feel comfortable. It's led to some, we're going to say, some unfortunate incidences in their own home country, and that to me is sad and reason enough to change it. But yeah, I don't know. It certainly is a minefield. Like, I have my opinions on it, but I also try and keep my opinions to myself because I recognize that it's not my history, and I think it's something that, even though the world has come together to be like, this is bad, I also think that perhaps it's a conversation that needs to happen within Belgium with Belgians. You prefer Swiss chocolate? But why? Well, you know, what's really interesting is that when it comes to racism, like, this is sort of funny in, like, a hypocritical kind of way, but I find it really interesting that people will say, like, oh, Belgians are racist, the Dutch are racist, especially if they're Americans, when from just, and this is just one person, but I mentioned this in a couple videos, where Prince Charming is not white. He's the Belgian and he's not white. So that goes against the whole stereotype of, like, Europeans are all white. They're not. Europe is diverse. Like, oh my gosh, I know, mind blown. And of all the places that I lived, like when I lived in France, the fact that we were two different colors never came up. It's not an issue. Like, never even an issue with my children. Moving to Belgium, same story. But anytime I've gone back home, yeah, the main issue when people see my husband, or even if they see my kids, it's always about race. And so, you know, there's this part of me that sort of thinks that Belgium just did this and didn't see it as racist because they're not as racist as, like, say, Americans are. And America's so racist that I feel like they pointed it out because, like, yeah, that's racist. Like, I don't think I'm explaining that well, but it's sort of just ironic to me that I know so many Americans who honestly believe, like, oh my gosh, Belgium is so racist. And I don't know, perhaps they are, but I'm just saying that based on the fact that I have biracial children and I'm in an interracial relationship, I've never had any issues, versus, like, back home, I'm constantly asked if my children are adopted. I've been asked why I debase myself to be with somebody who isn't white. I have family members who have literally disowned me because, well, I brought somebody with some pigment in their skin into the family. And I don't know if these are issues that other Belgians have faced. Maybe they have some stories that they can share, but like the most invasive question I get about my children in Belgium is people will stare intently at them and I'll think, oh my gosh, you're going to ask me like some inappropriate question. And all they ask is, are your children twins? And it's like, yes. And that's the most invasive thing I've been asked. So I'm a lot happier over here. And that's one of the like defining factors of one of the reasons why Prince Charming and I will honestly probably never end up back in the US is because just based on that experience, I don't want my children to have to deal with that. Though it is weird that you prefer Swiss chocolate, if I'm honest. Because well, I shouldn't say that. I've had Swiss chocolate that I've been able to buy from the supermarket. Maybe if I could try Swiss chocolate like from Switzerland, like from a mom and pop shop from Switzerland, I might change my mind. But I don't know. We had this amazing praline palais, and then what was the other one? It was like something about Temmelrick, I think. Temmelrick, I don't know, something to do with like heaven or something. And they were both chocolate shops that made homemade Belgian chocolate, which I don't think I need to specify that it's Belgian chocolate because of chocolate made in Belgium, so duh. But oh my gosh. Like, I can't eat Hershey's chocolate anymore. Like, that used to be my standard of chocolate, of good quality chocolate. And then I had homemade chocolate from Belgium, and it ruined me. Like, I taste the chocolate back home, and it's not good. It really isn't. Swiss milk chocolate. Oh, see, I don't like milk chocolate. Well, actually, I should amend that. I've never been a big fan of milk chocolate because I've never thought it tasted good. And it's the same with white chocolate. Never thought it tasted good. And then I had chocolate, like milk chocolate in Belgium, and it honestly tastes like chocolate milk. Like you can taste the milk in it. It tastes so different from milk chocolate in the States. I don't know what they probably used real milk. That's probably what they did. But it's good over here. And white chocolate, I swear in the US had this just pasty taste, sort of like butter, and it didn't taste good. But over here, it still has that butter taste a little bit, and I'm not a big fan of butter, but it also has this creamy, smooth taste, and it's so delicious. Oh my goodness, it was delicious. But it has to be homemade from a shop, because like the Belgian chocolate that you find in a grocery store really isn't that good. It's probably because it's not homemade with love. I'm on Instagram now helping a fellow student with a project because part of the social media team is not knowing what we need to do half the time and just figuring it out. If you are alone and you try to sing a song, it will be Honestly, it would be a Disney song, probably from The Little Mermaid, or from Snow White, or from Beauty and the Beast. Okay. To be honest, of all the American snacks or products, I can say I thought of was better than anything else I've tried in Europe. It would be beef jerky, which is kind of sad. No, oh my gosh, beef jerky is delicious. That's the one thing, Slim Jims. Oh, I miss Slim Jims. Oh, it's so, yes, Slim Jims. I also like anything with cheddar. Anything with cheddar is delicious. Oh, if anybody would care to know, in marketing, we're talking about direct-to-consumer fictitious case. So we're doing casework. I also don't know how to study for this one test because I've been told it's sort of easy and you can fake it. So yay. Because so far I only have one test that I don't need to study for because the test is communication. And it's either you know it or you don't. And I think the thing that I have going for me is that I'm American and I don't have issues talking. I think it might be problematic for some of the other students who are less inclined to talk and share their opinion. Also, I feel like it helps that I'm a writer because I can sell almost anything because I know how to tell a story. I swear that's how I passed Dutch, despite the fact that I suck at Dutch and half the time I did study. In fact, I specifically remember one case where we had a test and I forgot we had a test and I hadn't studied any of the words. And she picked one word that I didn't know. And I was like, I'm sorry, I really don't know what this word is. I don't even remember it from the book. And so she allowed me to choose a different word. And I remembered the word, thank God. But I think I got full points for the sentence because I invented this whole story of how and why I got sick. See, that's how you bullshit your way through life. You make people believe your story. Which I feel like I can do through communication. I don't know. Maybe I'm overconfident. I guess we'll have to see. Well, it might be problematic for business in Europe. Well, you know, I was thinking about that because one of the things that I noticed is that people are uber formal here. It's like to the point that it's almost uncomfortable for me that they're that formal. Like I don't understand what's going on. It's just, and I know this is a cultural difference, like 100%, but it's just so different because I understand that for a lot of people, if you're formal and you're over the top formal, it's respectful. But at least from my perspective, like if you're being formal and you're doing it over the top, it's like you're being condescending. Like it's counterproductive to what they want to come across. I'd much rather somebody be informal with me. It seems more sincere. It's hard for Americans to not come across as disingenuous to Europeans. I think that's because Europeans are so unused to compliments, to be frank. Like, because I get that. I get comments from time to time from people saying, you can't be this happy. You can't be this optimistic. Like, you can't mean half the things that you say. And it's like, no, I really do. Like, this is not an act. I'm genuinely this happy. I'm genuinely able to find the silver lining in anything, no matter how difficult it is. Like, there's always a reason to be grateful. There's always a reason to be happy. And I don't mind that people think that I'm naive for doing that way. It's just I find it more easy to focus on the good things in life than to wallow in the sadness and just go down a spiral and be sad and want to just like to end it all because it's like, what's the point? Which I can be that way, just I don't find it's productive. Like, for example, right now, well, I would say last week I had a lot of regret with starting school because it's just life has become very inconvenient and I don't like inconvenient. And I was really focusing on how I wasn't really learning anything where I felt was going to be helpful with what I'm currently doing online. I was also really upset because going to school and now having to study is taking time from being able to edit my videos and to create content for my channel, and I didn't want to lose my audience, and I really like doing YouTube. And not being able to make videos, like, it's not something that I feel obligated to make. It's something that helps me to relax. It's something that's it's enjoyable. And so the fact that I couldn't do it was just annoying. But then I realized that I was focusing too much on all the negative, and instead of doing that, it would be better to focus on fixes. So if I can't edit a video, which really I don't enjoy editing that much, it is a useful skill from time to time, but it takes a lot of time. And so here we are live streaming. And to be perfectly honest, I really like live streaming. I really do. I do to some extent feel bad that I'm doing these really long form videos, and there'll be some, we'll say, things that I need to consider for next year because I know that the video format that I had before isn't sustainable, but I'm adapting. Well, like when I moved to Belgium from UK, I kept doing British things and kept getting very worried looks around me, like asking how people are calling almost everyone love. Ah. Well, that could also be a lost in translation thing. Because I have a habit of, and this is just from practice because my mom was in sales and I used to have to help her train for that. And I'm also really obsessed with communication to the point that I sometimes wonder if I'm an evil person, because all communication is manipulation. It's convincing another person to dispense their belief. And yeah, because that's it. Like the most offensive thing I did was getting off a bus and I said thank you to the driver like you do in the UK, and people are just stopped. And yeah, I do the same thing. Like I express my gratitude all the time. Like I thank the teachers for teaching me, and that's apparently weird. Like I thank people for doing their work, which is weird. But you know, it's sad if they think that I'm that I don't mean that, but I really do. I think it's important for people to express gratitude even in the small things, because the worst thing I think that you can do to a person is to make them feel underappreciated or as if they're not appreciated. And I know that even for the stupid things that I'm supposed to do every day, like I really like it when people thank me for it. It makes me feel better. So I try and remember that if I want people to thank me for, the low effort crap that I do, that I need to thank them for the low effort crap that they're doing. So everybody can feel better. So like I'll thank my husband for taking out the garbage, or for getting the kids breakfast, or for putting up the dishes, or whatever it is that he did. And especially if it's something that I should have done and I just did it because I was being lazy, like I appreciate it generally, honestly, sincerely do. And so I'll go out of my way to say that. because I think it's important. And what's great is that my husband does the same thing for me. So he thanks me every single night for cooking dinner. And that's the only reason why I cook dinner, is because he thanks me for it, because that's how easy I am. But a nice side effect of that is that our children express themselves by saying thank you all the time. So they'll say, like, thank you to their brother for getting the book back, or thank you for getting this, or thank you for getting that. And that's one of the comments that we get from school, is that our children are very thoughtful and polite. And the only reason they're that way is because that's how Prince Charming and I treat each other. So it's not disingenuous. Though I do understand from the European perspective where it comes from. I think it's because they confuse greetings with questions. Because I've been asked why Americans ask each other, how do you do, when they don't mean it. And I thought that was funny, because I was like, because that's not a question, it's a greeting. It's like saying hello and then you telling me about your day. Like, it's the same concept. Just because I say how do you do, that's not a question, it's a greeting. Okay, first job interview in Belgium. I did UK thing. You dress up, suit and tie, most any job. I saw all the other people just like short sleeve shirts, jeans, sneakers, and I was so overdressed. Huh. That's really interesting, because where were you? Because whenever Prince Charming would go for interviews, he dressed up in a suit and tie. I mean, he looked awesome. I really loved it. But I was also shocked by that, because it could be because most of my jobs were through family connections, so I didn't actually have to interview or try that hard. But also, I think it's different for a girl, because I usually am asked why I'm dressed up so much, and like, I'm wearing a skirt and I'm wearing like this sweater thing, and for me, this is not me trying. I think it's just because it's so different from what normal people wear, which like jeans and t-shirts, that it seems like I'm dressed up, and it's like, no, this is just my style. So maybe it was just where you were working. And he works in IT. So I got the impression that at least for an interview, you're supposed to dress up. What is the weirdest product? Oh, what is your wish list product for Black Friday? Okay. That was weird, because that pretty much looked like my children's bus, but it just passed by. I don't really have a wish list product in Black Friday, because there's nothing that I really wanted this year. I did consider buying a new camera, because I was like, my old one, I sort of dropped it and it's broken in place, and I was thinking it'd be nice to have a newer one that had like a mic and a light, but I didn't buy it because I'm live streaming now, and my live stream cam is like super nice, and it's the Logitech one, which I think was like 80 euros. This will do. I did get a computer though, because the old one was dying, so I like that one, but I don't know. I'm thinking of investing in StreamYard, because I would like to do more live streams with guests coming on, but that will probably be something for next year, because I was thinking of possibly doing live streaming through Twitch and YouTube, and it would be useful if I could stream to multiple locations. But that won't be for Black Friday, which I think already happened, because I think it's the Friday after Thanksgiving, so I missed it. Okay, you pick it up. Though last time I was in the UK, someone said to me, "How are you, love?" And I was Belgian shocked with Who are you and why are you invading my privacy? Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. The last time I went to the US, I was in the grocery store and I bumped into somebody. You know how you do, you almost bump into somebody and they said sorry to me and I was so confused, like, okay, first of all, why is this person saying sorry? And two, why are they talking to me? Like, it's not their fault. They didn't see me. Who cares? Also, when I went to the cashiers and the cashier asked me, oh, how are you? Or how are you doing? And I was like, good, thanks, you. And I expected her to just be like, good. And then that was it. But she was carrying on this whole conversation with me. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is wrong with this woman? And she was asking me personal questions like, what are you doing this weekend? And after the whole encounter, I realized, oh my God, I was so rude because asking somebody, how was your weekend? Or what are you going to do this weekend? Isn't invasive or personal. It's just, you know, things that you do. Oh, I just realized that I needed to start the oven at like 4:30 and I forgot. Oh, kids are here, so be right back. Oh, Furkoni, what's up? I swear, my children, whenever they get home, they act like I've never fed them. So like, Mama, can we have like 4 bags of chips? And it's like, no, you may not. Okay, it's getting really dark out and now I'm really paranoid about people being able to see in the window. Okay, that's better. They can't see it. Oh, gotta go. See ya. Thanks for stopping by. My children got home a little bit later than I expected because class is almost over. It's like 15 minutes longer. Oh, and now we're talking about omnichannels.
All lined up next to each other and based on that perception the customer can choose.
Oh, I have a thingy from Instagram. It's probably from my friend from the social media team because half of the fun is not knowing what we're going to do. Oh, it went good. That's good to know.
There's no alignment of how you approach that client. There might be even changes look and feel of brands or look and feel of websites or physical brands. So this you offer a choice to your customer where you can buy, you can choose different channels, but the channels functions separately, independent from each other. Cross-channel is
We got another email concerning the exams, which says, hold on, I'll try and say it in Dutch. That'll be fun. De examroosters werden aangepast volgens de bijkomende. Oh my god, this is a long word. Okay. Maatregelen. Jullie kunnen de roosters terugvinden in deze community in de map documenten. Neem zeker het omreglement nog eens aandachtig door. Veel succes met de exams. My Dutch is strong. But now I have to find where this folder is. You know, that's fun. I don't even know where, like she says in the folder documents, but I don't understand. Okay, maybe it's the hand tall thingy. Okay, I'm gonna show you. Okay, so we have this thing called Toledo, and this is Toledo. We have all these different communities, and I don't know which community I'm supposed to go under to find. Oh, I think it's this one because there are little red dot thingies there. To find stuff. Okay, so the English version, I don't think it was that one. No, because we already saw this. You know what? It'll just be easier if I go to the most recently uploaded document. Exam roster. Okay, there we go. Is it this? Oh, no, it's this one. Okay, English. Oh, okay, it looks like we are getting it. Oh. Yeah, it looks like for a couple of the exams that we're going to be in the expo parking place. Okay. That's interesting. Okay. Well, except for the first one. The first one is online. So hip hip hooray to Professor Phil, who kindly decided to do it online. How can I save this? Just click randomly. It's not about the destination. It's about the journey and all.
We'll be sending you some information about how to peer assess your team members. Okay, thank you very much for your attention.
I think he's closing class early.
Good week. And if you have any more questions, I'll be online for the next 5 or 10 minutes. Okay?
Cool.
Bye. Have a nice week.
Oh, yay. Class is over early. That's awesome. Okay, so I found the schedule for our exams, and it says the definite exam roster, which I'm guessing is the final one. I'm not entirely sure. I hope it is. I know it made the change that we talked about in the meeting. So the first week is not that bad. We have the introduction to marketing, which is online, and then I don't have tests for 2 days because exceptions. Then I have a test on Thursday and Friday, and then we have a test on Saturday because life sucks. and then I don't have tests for 2 days. No, 3 days. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to. It looks like they're all in the morning too. Oh crap. It says the written exams they start at 8:30. That really sucks. Because I think when I was leaving at around 7, I was getting at school at around 8-ish, which when I was starting at 8:45, that wasn't a problem because I didn't want to be there too early. But I mean, for exams, you sort of want to be there a bit early in case you can't find out, in case you don't know where you're going to go, or you know where you're going to go, but it turns out you don't know where you're going to go. So that's not going to be fun. But I think all of them are 2 hours long. I guess, yeah. Well, it's a good way to end the day. Class ended early. I have my exams. I had a wonderful time chatting with you all. Oh, his English seems very British. No, his English for the marketing teacher is, it's very good in my opinion. Certainly better than some of my other teachers who, unfortunately, like, I don't like to make comments on languages just because, like, I know firsthand how difficult and intimidating it can be to speak a language, but also at the same time, I feel like if you're going to teach a program in English, you would sort of expect that the English level would be a bit higher than some of the teachers are exhibiting. But that's just my 2 cents, because I have a couple teachers where I had this whole misunderstanding with the teacher because of the way they pronounced a word. And then I felt bad because I corrected them because I didn't understand what the word was because they were just pronouncing it wrong. They were saying inventories, and I never heard that word. And I was saying, so you mean something like stock, like what you have in a store, like the store stock? And she was like, yeah. I was like, well, yeah, I think that you would hear that way more than inventories because I never heard the word. The issue wasn't the word inventories. It was the fact that she was trying to say inventories. So the emphasis was all in the wrong places. And then I felt really bad and didn't want to correct it because, yeah. So I just left it, which is probably really mean, but it's just, yeah. Plus, I also like that teacher. For some of my other teachers, I don't care because I don't like them. But for the teachers that make an effort, I do. I know, that seems so mean and evil of me. I'm sorry. I swear I'm a good person. No, but like for the payment and trade procedures teacher, like, I don't know. You know what's really funny is when I lived in France, I had lots of issues because I was American, and to stop the issues for being American, I just started telling people that I was British, and it's not like I did anything. I didn't start attempting a British accent or anything. I just said, yeah, I'm British, and I would just talk like this, and people would be like, oh my god, I love Britain. And I knew nothing about Britain. I'd just be like, yeah, I lived in London. Yeah. And they believed me. And I felt bad because obviously I'm not British, but they were also a lot nicer to me when they thought I was British than when they found out that I was American. So accents are fun, except sometimes for people who speak it as a second language, they'll believe anything that they hear. So you just have to be confident in what you're saying. And I definitely wasn't one of those students when I was younger that would tell people wrong answers just to be mean. Oh, I'm letting all the badness out. I swear I'm a good person, really. Okay, I have to go because I need to go and make dinner. Thank you, everybody, for joining me on today's lesson. It was so much fun. I didn't pay attention that much in school, but honestly, that's sort of how it's going right now, because later I'll just review those classes and understand them in like 30 minutes, because that's how it works now. Anyway, I will see you guys probably, I don't know, maybe tomorrow if I'm feeling up to it. So come by again. Thank you all, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Tootsies, my applesines.